some story during Black History Month where the school people, they served, like for one of the lunches, they had fried chicken and greens and cornbread and soul food, pretty much.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and people were like, this is racist. I'm like, what?
No, you're racist. That's kind of like protesting too much. Like, why are you? No, it's like, and the school was in Alabama. I can tell. They probably had that in January, in March.
They're like, they're gonna serve this chicken during Black History Month? Okay. I mean, what are you really?
Now, if they were like, only the niggers are getting the chicken, well.
Yeah, there needs to be like some.
Sit down, Parker. This don't concern you none. You own his family. You're going to have watercress. Like, well, okay, there's a problem.
Where the chicken is served on a plate with the Dixie, like with Dixie signage on it and a picture of Robert E. Lee. Yeah, I might have a problem.
Giving everybody the finger. Eat this chicken nigger. Eat this delicious fried chicken, you worthless nigger. All y'all deserve is delicious fried chicken. Thank you, Robert E. Lee. I agree with Robert E. Lee.
It's like, yeah, and then they serve watermelon as the fruit. And I'm like, really? Like, first of all, watermelon is an African fruit. Watermelon was the vehicle for Black wealth coming out of slavery. It was
Which is why you're feeling a way about it now, because their campaign was successful to make it to where like watermelon was a negative thing. But that comes from people not knowing that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't put it past some little racist cafeteria planner to be like, But it's like, okay, bitch, this was delicious. Thank you.
This was not the flexer you thought it was.
Cook more delicious food for me, you racist white bitch. If you really knew what you were doing, you'd poison it, dummy. That's what my ancestors did for years.
Exactly. No half-stepping with us.
Welcome to Tangentially Speaking, the podcast where we have in-depth and entertaining conversations with a lot of tangents that always, eventually, connect two seemingly unrelated topics. I am Nikki. And I'm Nita Sharice.
Today we're reviewing Bel-Air, the grittier, edgier update of the 1990 hit sitcom The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Much more dramatic than the original, which starred mega A-list actor and rap guy Will Smith, Bel-Air stars Jabari Banks as Will, Cassandra Freeman as Vivian Banks, and Adrian Holmes as Uncle Phil. The complete first 2 seasons of Bel-Air are available on Peacock. I'm enjoying this series, and I'm glad I rewatched the first season because I didn't realize how many little seeds were planted for the second season, and then it's just very well done. Like, they're back and forth. The conversation sounds natural. It doesn't sound like, in case you don't know, this is a Black show. Like, it sounds like, yes, these people would speak this way. Yes, this man is like high powered. He's successful. He's an attorney. He's running for office. But like, I believe all of the paraphernalia in his office, like, it's like vintage concert signs or like lyrics from, songs where like, if you're paying attention, you're like, oh, that's that song. But it's like done in this very like, this artistic way. It doesn't seem like too much. Like, I never got the sense of being like, okay, he hasn't forgotten where he came from, even though he can like buy people probably. We get it. He's so down. It just looks natural. Everything is natural. The actors are great. They're not suffering from Tyler Perry actor syndrome or, B movies on BET. And that's not shade to them. Those movies can be great fun and they're good to just have on, but it's beautiful. Everybody's gorgeous. Everybody's gorgeous.
Everybody.
Uncle Phil, Jeffrey.
I mainly watch this show now for the hot men action because it's nonstop hotties, all episode long, every single episode. They really play up how beautiful Black men are.
They do.
I'm here for it. But between, their haircuts, it's not a thing where I used to complain about the haircuts on what's that show with what's his name? Maine. Terrence
Empire? Terrence
Empire.
Howard.
I'm like, could they please cut Terrence Howard's hair at some point? Like, please. There was just no excuse. Like, I know Fox has the budget, all right? Like, but they never half step. And you're right. The show is so believable. These are Black people who have moved on up. They have not lost touch of who they are. But even more than that, because I went back and watched a few episodes of the original show, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, just to refresh myself. And they respected the original so much, but just really built upon it and took the time to correct those things that probably would have been viewed as problematic today. Like the relationship dynamic between Vivian and Phil. There was so much animus before, but they are a partnership. I love their partnership. Because when you have a combined vision with the person that you're supposed to be with, yes, you can acquire all kinds of wealth and fortune and fame and everything. And I love that about the new version, like how strong their partnership is. I love how the children, they're all trying to figure themselves out, but all of them are trying to figure out their place, in the household, within their family, within the Black community at large, within Southern California, as rich people who are Black, and I never thought that Carlton would really turn out to be the star of the show, but I think the star is actually really Carlton, because And I felt that way, especially after taking the time to first read The Alchemist, because that was recommended in the first season. And I agree with you, all those little nuggets that were dropped, where it's like, no, this show is really trying to do something, not just entertain, not just try to make light of a serious situation in order to convey a message, but it's really trying to leave you better than you were, when you started watching it. But also, like, I wanted to read Will Smith's biography after seeing the first season again. And I think Carlton's character is more of a reflection of Will Smith than Will Will on the show.
I agree with that. Yeah, that's so interesting. But then it isn't surprising, because we already had that the intellectual property of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is already out there. Even if you never really watched it, something about that show. It was everywhere. It still kind of is sometimes.
Yeah.
And so because we know Will, the Fresh Prince, so well, it kind of isn't surprising that Carlton would kind of like steal the show, because we saw Will go through all of these things, and Carlton, he went through some things, but he was mainly one note. And that's no shade. He wasn't the protagonist. So we saw him realize some things. The one that always stands out to me is the one where they get pulled over by the police. And at the beginning of the middle of the episode, Carlton's like, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, that, it's so much more pat that, like, well, I'm sure the cops had a reason. And then at the end, they kind of leave it like open-ended. Like, Carlton doesn't just have this change of heart, but something else happens. I think, like, he gets stopped again, or like Carlton is in a position where he's like, I mean, he had a reason to stop me, right? He's like really wrestling with it. And I remember thinking, is he stupid? But of course, that's your experience. He's been insulated from that sort of thing. So seeing Carlton play this total other character, which, man, I forgot how hateful he was in the first season. Like, I had completely just forgotten, like, oh, this thing is a problem. Like, you playing around like you putting drugs in somebody's, like, it's like, oh, you really have forgotten, like, you're Black, but there is a way that embracing your Blackness looks very different at this school than it does just like walking down whatever street. And so if you have the same set of friends and you're in your bubble, you're going to get out into that real world and be like, hold on, yeah, I'm Black, but I'm not Black like this. Maybe when I am not around these people, all of a sudden they don't recognize me anymore. Then I'm going to be treated like a different kind of Black. And so it's been interesting seeing Carlton, like, the actor is really doing a great job, because it's like one moment I mostly hated him in the first season, but then like within the first season, you're even like, but that has to hurt, where it seems like your dad is like making all this effort with somebody else and not you. And then even, man, parents, don't do this. Saying things out loud where you are obviously comparing me to somebody else. I can't be anybody than what I am. And I'm also yours, because in the first season, Phil says something like, he's playing ball with Will. And so, of course, Will is just like, oh my God, like, it isn't just like a basketball hoop up in the driveway. It's like, this is a court. And he's like, yeah, he said something to the effect of, I envisioned Carlton and I being out here, but he got into lacrosse and race cars. And it's like, they're currently bumping heads. Teenagers don't tell you every single thing that's going on in their lives. So they're bumping heads. If Will was grimy, he could like nanny boo boo to Carlton and like, I have more in common with your dad. But also you're speaking in this disdainful tone, but you had your son and then ensconced him in all of this, and now you're irritated.
Exactly.
Which we as parents do. We talk about on a much smaller scale, how like much smaller. I'm like, that bitch she ain't happy with the movie theater. I'm not rolling like that yet. But there are ways where we're like, our kids have these fabulous lives. They're going on this, and they don't appreciate it. And it's like, but they've never not had it to appreciate it. It isn't like, man, mom, we used to, swallow air and imagine water. And now we're at the water park. It's like, we've only ever given them this, and now we're annoyed that they're like, yeah, I don't want to do that today. Like, you brat. No one ever took me.
Yeah.
Like, we really have to be very mindful in like what we're speaking about our kids when they're not there, especially to another kid.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I feel for Carlton so bad. But then he also frustrates me, because it's like, open your mouth and tell them, like, you're just stewing, like, and then he's just all screwed up, but it's not all his fault, and then they came such a long way in the second season that I had most recently seen that. So I was shocked at how like, oh wait, these niggas did not see it for each other at all. Mainly Carlton. Like, he just kept on like, yeah, my friend planted drugs. And at least that was the first kind of inkling. He was like, oh shit, like, that's messed up. And I appreciated that too, that he wasn't just a crazy monster that did not understand how bad, like, he knows. He was just so like blinded. But Connor needs to die. And that's the last thing I'll say.
Connor does need
that
to die.
That motherfucker needs to die.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, like you said, that Carlton doesn't have one note. None of the characters are one note except maybe Ashley.
Maybe Ashley.
For
right now.
Yeah, but all of them, it's like you see their humanity, and you're able to relate to them and empathize with them. Even Carlton, like my heart went out for him, even though he's supposedly the villain of the show. I just think that speaks to the writing, that speaks to the actors, just everything about
I love the show. It's just so good.
Yes, I love it. And I did not know what to expect. When the first season came out, I was just like, am I going to hate this? Because like usually when they do a remake of something, you just...
Or it's really like clunky, like, look, it's not 1990 anymore. Now they're texting. It's like, we get it. I'm watching this on my phone right now. This is no longer a novelty. Like, they just did it, and they put it out there. And like, even like their little one-offs when this is the first season too, when Connor went too far and Carlton's like, this is a lot. And he said something like, you need to fix it. And Connor's like, nobody's gonna find out. He said, my dad is the DA, or he's a lawyer. He's put people away. He's like, he's taken down these things. He's gonna find him. And then he said, and my mom is a Black mom. Like, I like how it's like that holds just as much weight as I've taken down criminal organizations. I've RICO'd motherfuckers all over the place. And my mom is Black, so.
Yeah, and you didn't play with Vivian. I like how, I don't even remember what the first Vivian in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air did, outside of, she used to be a dancer.
Janet Hubert.
Janet Hubert, I love that woman. Like, she's my forever auntie.
Yeah.
Always loved her. I always loved her poise, you know, her cheekbones. Like, you could cut, cheese with her cheekbones. No, I shouldn't say cheese. You could slice bread.
You could cut a diamond.
Yes. She's just so matronly in a very positive way.
But she was still like fly. Like, she wasn't mama. Like, the little dance scene that is so popular, like when she keeps up with those girls. That my baby recreated, having never seen that before. And Zoe went like that in the video. I'm like, where did she get that from? That's crazy.
Yes. Oh. So I love Janet Hubert then, but Cassandra Freeman, I love how she's also fully realized that she is a 40-something-year-old woman. And it's like, outwardly, she has her shit together. She is to be feared and respected at all times. But inside, we're still also trying to figure it out too, you know? And I
she second guesses herself a lot, but that's so real.
It happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the hardest part about watching this show is like identifying with the youthful characters, because it's Will Smith. We're his contemporaries, but also like, well, wait a minute, Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv are my age, and Uncle Phil is hot as fuck. Yeah,
like Uncle Phil looks like a character in an animated series that somebody made about Africa for me to show to my kids. Yeah. Like, when I look at him, I'm just like, teach me about Kunta Kinte, or just something. Not Kunta Kinte, but like, he literally looks like when somebody says we're descended from kings and queens. It's like, yeah, it would be his face.
Yeah, it looks with
the hat,
like both
that
of
looks
them.
Like the museum. Yeah, them both. But it's something about his. I just knew that I was going to pull him up and he was going to be African, and he's not.
No, he's not.
I was like, he's got to be like not Nigerian, but he's from the source. And then it's like, dude, like from Cleveland or something. I'm just pulling that out there. But like, he's not. It's not from Cleveland.
I already told you that episode, the last episode of the second season, when he stepped through Carlton's doorway with the pajamas on, I was like, yes, come on in and lay it down right here.
Stop it. Oh, stop it. Dirty old woman. Come on in and lay it down.
Next to me.
It sounds so starved.
I'm ready for you.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And that's why I couldn't stand that heifer. That bitch. I hate women like that. I cannot stand. It's like, go and get your own shit. You're gorgeous. There's yes, he is fine. But like, get on Jeffrey. You don't seem like he'd mind.
No, Jeffrey wouldn't mind. But yeah, I thought it was funny how there's been several fans of Jeffrey. Like, I'm gonna come stand next to Jeffrey. It was a couple of episodes. Like, yeah,
the second Aunt Viv likes him, yes. Which is hilarious. It's like Daphne Maxwell Reid, like, oh, Jeffrey coming. I want to say, wasn't it one of Vivian's friends? She's very fair skinned, and I don't know if you ever watched this show, but she used to be Sterling K. Brown's wife on Army Wives.
Oh, okay, yes. I watched Army Wives.
That's her. You didn't recognize it because they have her as so feminine and nice. And in Army Wives, that show, I watched that show, but they really made her the angry black bitch all the time, because like, he was the only like Army husband, and so she'd be like, "Listen, these things you don't understand about the military," and I'm like, I didn't have to be like, they think they slick because they made her super fair, but she's still an angry black woman. Like, this is the only fair skinned woman that I think nobody notices that she's light skinned, just because she's always like, you don't understand, Roland.
Yeah,
and so I almost didn't recognize her because she was like, all right, Viv, she's popped up in the first and second season. Like, that's like one of Viv's closest friends.
Yeah,
and I think she likes Jeffrey. Yes. And okay. I'm pretty sure she's one of the ones. Like, there's a few people that's like, girl, Jeffrey. And I'm like, I am waiting for them. It is not realistic that one of her closest good girlfriends has not made the comment like, Vivian walking right here got Phil and Jeffrey, like making comments like, you can't tell me that nothing has ever happened. I don't think anybody's said that, probably because they want to keep it like, they don't want to plant any seeds. But if I was her friend, I'd make comments like that all the time. Like, y'all marriage sure is grown.
Y'all
got a strong marriage.
now you got me thinking about Army Wives because I binged the hell out of that show. There was
something about it that was actually so good. When I think about it now, I'm like, was I really watching this show with 98.9% just white women crying? But it was good.
It was good with the Lifetime glow and everything. Like,
yeah. Where it's like, where is this mythical place that these people live? What army base is this where everybody's like, girl, I know my angles and my light and I got a wind machine. It's like, what base is this? They're like breaking horrible news. Like, your husband is found dead. Oh no. What am I going to do? I have diabetes. That is the biggest thing in my life right now. I must be a terrible person. Never understood that storyline. That was stupid. But that was dumb.
Like Claudia Jane, she had like 2 names that she didn't need. Like
Claudia Joy, who was perfect. She got diabetes, and all of a sudden we were supposed to believe that she was like, I'm not a good person anymore. And I'm like, what does she think diabetes is?
Part of the reason why I started watching that is because my ex was an advisor on the show. He was because they actually consulted CDC to verify.
Well, I didn't know that.
Health information. So producers came and met with him, and he was actually advisors on a couple of different shows where they mentioned health stuff, and they're like, get this information right because a lot of Americans be watching this, and
that's the end of TV watching for me.
It's funny because CDC didn't mess up with stuff like that. They just messed up during global pandemics.
The real stuff. They're like TV shows. It's almost like we're going to find out that the person who started the CDC or the person who's over it is actually like a failed TV writer and is actually a creative. But it's interesting. Steve Bannon like wanted to make films or like was doing that for a while.
Bannon.
Girl. Yeah. There are a lot of people where they got turned down in some arena, and then it turns into like, I'm just gonna go and be Candace Owens now. Like, it's just another thing that they're doing. Like, some of the most abhorrent people, if you look them up, they used to do other things where it's like, wait, so like you were a person? So this is just was I listening to the Succession podcast where they were talking about Kevin Sorbo, who used to be Hercules, I think. He's like super right wing, but the man who was talking was just kind of attributing it to like people start to not make it, or they like their career kind of like hits a thing. He was like, they all just turned super right wing crazy. And like, he was just kind of saying like, this isn't anything scientific. He was like, I don't know. There just seems to be like a connection. Like, and now I will play my greatest role. Like, you know, and because those people end up, they're very profitable. You know, we've talked about that before, how there's more money in just being a giant dumbass on Fox than there is just being like reasonable.
Yeah,
you know,
he's a perfect example. He started off being actually liberal, you know, and then he turned all the way right and started making money hand over fist.
Ronald Reagan was too.
Yes, Ronald Reagan, he was pro-abortion, you know, before.
He was a Democrat.
Yes.
And then he was like,
He was a pro-abortion Democrat. And then Nancy, you know, in between administering blowjobs to half of Hollywood, found him, hooked up with him, and encouraged him to get into politics, I guess.
So.
Yeah, go ahead.
First, you got to get the flyover states. Okay? And then, wait, what? And then, okay, shut up. Like,
that's so foul.
You'll see it my way soon. I mean, really, like, but that just goes to show you these people know what the country actually is. Like, so it's like, if you're on the other side of being reasonable, you know, like people like to say Hollywood, like they're liberal, godless, whatever. Hollywood is conservative as hell. That's why all of this shit goes on in secret, because people still cannot be themselves, because it's all about, you know, middle America, this and middle. That's who actually runs it. But the studio heads, they also believe that shit. Like, I think that we get caught up in like, well, that's what sells. And it's just crazy that sex sells, but then also you have to pretend like you don't know that and you're pure. It's really twisted and sick.
I just don't understand how people can't see like what a huge theater all of America has become. And it's I'm saying become like this is a recent thing. No, there's the actors that get up on stage and we pay them and we laugh at them and we're entertained by them, but they are on the same level as the actors that we vote for. They're all actors. They're all on stage pretending, in order to uphold this great experiment. And it's so fucking frightening.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so frightening. I was on the call with a client yesterday in the Bay Area, and he worked for a Bay Area Rapid Transit, or BART, and so I was just like, hey, I was doing your document, and I was glad to see you're from my old stomping grounds. I was born and raised in Northern California. He's like, oh, okay. When's the last time you've been home? I was like, oh, I was there last Christmas. He's like, have you seen this place? I'm like, yeah, it's pretty fucked up. And he's like, well, that's what we're dealing with at BART, because like they've expanded the systems, and you can get around, around the Northern California so much easier. You can go from Sacramento to San Jose on public transportation, and not spend an arm and a leg. But also, it's so crazy how that system is so much better than the transportation system here in Atlanta, one of the, a capital of one of the original 13 colonies. And you absolutely have to have a fucking car. Oh, and our median home values are 51% higher than the market. Like, Metro Atlanta has the highest price houses. Why the fuck is that? Anyway, he was saying, yeah, I'm really looking to move out of state because I'm just kind of tired of all this. And he's like, well, I'm thinking of like getting a property in Florida. I'm like, oh, so you're hopping from one bad political situation, because there's no reason why that many homeless should exist to where they're like, yeah, we're having to move homeless off of the BART trains because they have nowhere else to go. Why is everyone homeless in California? It's a democratically run state. But he's going to Florida. He's like, well, I actually agree more with the politics in Florida. I'm like, oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah. So
did he say what politics? Well, shoot, they're all pretty much bad, but like,
this one was originally from Wyoming, so God knows what he agrees with.
Jesus. The Holocaust was a hoax, and Black history isn't real.
Yeah, and like, trans kids are being abused by their parents. Don't let them use the bathroom. That's what's happening in Florida right now.
That's so crazy. Like, what? Like, don't let them use the bathroom. They're being abused. I'm sorry, the connection.
Do we rate this show?
5 stars. 5, 10, 15, 20. All of them.
Yes, I totally agree. This is a 5-star show. I'm so looking forward to the 3rd season. For those who haven't watched either season, get your life together. Like,
what are you doing? What are you doing?
What are you doing? I'm sure if you can't get Peacock, I'm sure right now you can pirate it somewhere. I'm not saying that you should. I'm just saying that you
not saying that Peacock, because we would love to be, I don't know if you still have an official podcast. I had not noticed one for season 2. You all had one for season 1 because it was hosted by DJ Jazzy Jeff and Crystal. Crystal took over after the original host, I think, got an opportunity somewhere. So Crystal in the first season, from like episode maybe 2 on, was the other person. And unless I've overlooked it, I haven't noticed one for season 2, like an official podcast. And it was good. Like, they'd have the creators come on, they'd have the actors, they would give like deeper insight to certain scenes and like what was going on. It was actually good. And Jazzy Jeff was just so happy.
Yeah. And listening to Will, the book by Will Smith.
I started it, yeah. Oof, good.
Yeah, I'm on chapter 5 now, and I'm like, it's not that I felt any way about Will Smith. I'm just like, you probably shouldn't have slapped Chris Rock like that, but also I understand. But I was one of those people where I'm like, oh yeah, in West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground is where he spent most of his days. Like that's him. That's his story.
Mm-hmm.
And so is it? And so
no, nope.
so
Daddy-o. That's his story.
yeah, I was so pleasantly surprised by his storytelling prowess. But then also some of the things, the wisdom he imparts. Like there were a couple of quotes. One he actually attributes to Bruce Lee, but the first one he says, "Learning is easy when you can feel that your teacher really loves you."
Oh.
It is. And then also, yeah, it is. This is how he was motivated by Bruce Lee or inspired by Bruce Lee. It is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And so he just drops little nuggets like that all through the book so far. And it's been fun, like journeying with him through like the rise of hip hop, because sometimes I forget, oh yeah, he started off as a rapper, and I like how Bel Air doesn't focus on that. They just focus on him being a kid, and it's basketball mostly as opposed to rapping.
Yeah.
But yeah, like with the book, they're going through, he's going through his history. He goes through, he tells, I'm at the part where he's met Jazzy Jeff and they've partnered, and now they've gotten discovered. They've got radio play with Girls of the World Ain't Nothing But Trouble.
Uh-huh.
It's been great. Like I heard from people who read the book and they were like, yeah, it's really good. And I'm just like, I don't know.
I just started. I think I am almost to chapter 2. Like I just started. So I have that. And I have The Alchemist. So
yeah. The Alchemist I listened to on the drive into New Orleans. I love the story. I loved it.
Okay.
It resonated with me so much, except for like the overt misogyny. I'm gonna wait in the desert because that's what a desert woman does. Like, no,
yeah, I remember you saying that, and I was like, I'm gonna listen to Will's thing first, because I was gonna start with The Alchemist because I was in season 1, and you mentioned that was. Then I was like, okay, wait, let me just start with Will's because I've had it on my wish list forever. His book.
I like how he reads it. I think he's doing a good job with reading it. And I also like how they actually build in the real music, when he's playing the piano, when he references a memory from in church, he actually plays the piano. And
I like when audiobooks have like production value like that. They're not just like, it's a book and I'm going to read it, and then that's it. Like they kind of put themselves in it a little bit without it being like overbearing. Whereas like, nigga, you should have just put out an album. Like, what's going on? The last thing that I'll say about this show that is that can be attributed to the writing, the storyboarding, whatever. I like how they seem to have one main current topic that they're addressing, but through the show. So in season 2, of course, it's the students. They're protesting the removal of original recipe Ashley because like Black Lives Matters, things like that. In the first one, I forgot that they had that storyline with Hillary when she kind of did like an interview / audition where she cooked for these people. It was called Haute Cuisine, and they were like, oh my God, it's so great. But then they start saying like they wanted like all these tweaks, and it really boiled down to, your colors are kind of bright. Like, can we tone down the spices to reach our audience, mainly meaning white people? Well, it reminded me, and I linked to it, of the whole thing that went down at Bon Appetit when that really good podcast that is now defunct, Reply All, did this series. And it was a really, really good series. And it was talking about all the racism at Bon Appetit and how people were taking like native recipes and changing them up and just making them more bland, but then not attributing it, like the same shit that they've been doing. Yeah. And in the process of Reply All uncovering what was happening at Bon Appetit, people started writing in like, Reply All, you talking about kettles and you black. So much, and I'm so glad they did it, but what I'm still a little bit mad about is because they decided to just stop airing it, they never aired the very last episode. The series was good, and they'll never air it. And I'm like, is it wrong that I'm kind of like he just let him finish. They were 4/5 of the way through. It was so good.
Yeah.
But to know that the same shit was happening.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I listened
so,
to the show pretty religiously. Another podcast that I just found out is not coming back for a third season is Louder Than a Riot. And
really?
Yes. So I just realized, I think it's like about 8 or 9 episodes of the second season are now available. They said they would finish the second season, but the second season they were talking about marginalized performers within the rap game. So it's so where for the first season was talking about how rappers are marginalized or how they're pigeonholed and they're targeted by the powers that be just because they're rap guys. The second season, first episode.
The tie-in is wonderful and annoying.
Thank you. All I want is your respect. That's all I want.
Shut up.
but yeah, the first episode they talk about Megan Thee Stallion getting shot by Tory Lane and the Tory Lane trial, and they were actually on in the courtroom while it was unfolding.
Whoa.
Yes. So then they found out maybe during the second episode of the second season that NPR was like, oh, we're slashing our budget, or whoever funds we're slashing the budget. Louder Than a Riot is discontinued. But all of the staff for Louder Than a Riot was like, no, we're going to continue doing this shit. We're going to finish out the second season.
Good.
The last episode I listened to was about I Love McConan. Yeah, I Love McConan. I didn't know he was gay. I love his songs. I love his music. He's the one that was like going up on a Tuesday.
Oh.
Yes. So
okay.
So he came out, and after he came out, because Drake did a verse over going up on a Tuesday, and then signed him to his label. And then after he came out, they started like treating him hella rude.
Really, Drake did?
Drake's sweet ass. Because anyway. Is that our show?
That is our show.
All right. Thank you for listening to Tangentially Speaking. This podcast is recorded and produced by Nita Charisse and Nikki Ebo. Our theme music is Lush Living by Martin Landstrom. Our artwork was created by Prime Vice Studios. You can learn more about this intellectual property development agency at primevice.com. Find us on your favorite podcast player and YouTube. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. And be sure to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter.